It's not something we generally like to talk much about, but it is much more common than you would actually think. Gynaecologist Anil Sharma is here now to talk about incontinence. Greetings.
Hello.
Have you on the couch.
How are you guys?
Hi, good.
Good.
Formal,
Just before we get into the heavy stuff, Doctor.
Yeah.
Growing up, was there anything that you wanted from a movie that you were obsessed with?
From a movie, I guess the Star Wars toys and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, at the age of 18, that wasn't quite appropriate. No, I was a bit younger, but no, I was a bit strange. The movies I really liked were spaghetti westerns.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, I wasn't really into
Good, the Bad and the Ugly and all that for a few
Fistful
dollars.
of
few dollars more.
For a few dollars, that sort of thing. Yeah.
All right, so incontinence is the topic of the day. How common is it?
Oh, look, it's very common. We're going to talk a little bit mainly about urinary incontinence today, because the other side is also, number twos is also a big, big issue. But about 1 in 3 women, and, you know, it can happen to women of all ages. You don't have to have had a baby. So it's actually quite normal for young women to occasionally become urinary incontinent. I've got a terrible story about some friends when I was much younger who were midwives, and they got into a fit of laughter over something funny, and it happened to one of them. So it can happen at any age, just for excessive pressure downwards.
Right.
But the sort of issues we're talking about, 1 in 3 of women who've had a baby usually, or more than one baby, end up with enough of it being a problem to a point where it needs something doing.
So just kind of explain what it is, because when you think of incontinence after having a baby, it's like jumping on the tramp with the kids and or sneezing.
Yep.
You know, but in just a little bit leaks out, or can it be more than that?
It can vary immensely. I mean, that's the sort of tip of the iceberg, really.
Yeah.
We don't worry too much after the first 6 months of the baby's birth, because up to about half of all women who've had a baby will have a temporary episode. But we're really more concerned about the women who carry on with problems. So, as you've said, it can be with problems with coughing, sneezing, laughing, running, jumping. Can't play with the kids anymore, can't go out power walking even sometimes. And then the other side of the coin is it doesn't happen very often, but when it happens, the whole bladder empties out.
Why does it happen?
It's partly, I mean, there's lots of answers to that. I think it's partly based on the fact that we decided to walk on 2 legs for whatever reason, evolution or creation, whatever is your belief. And the tube that comes out of the bladder is about anywhere between 4 and 5.5 centimetres long, so it's quite a short tube. And there's lots of mechanisms that keep us continent. The bladder has to remain relaxed unless we don't want it to be relaxed. The tube has to be quite tonic and have to have some tone to it and some support to it. And there's a ligament underneath that tube that has to function as well. And things like childbirth damage the structures, but they also damage the nerve supply. Having said that, it's not just a problem of childbirth. It can happen to any woman or man for that reason.
How can you whip it back into shape?
Well, first of all, you need to go. Your GP will send you to someone who deals with this sort of problem all the time, someone like me. You have to do the right tests to get the right diagnosis, because there are certain problems that an operation can make worse, and there's certain problems an operation can make better. So there's 2 main types of urinary incontinence. One is the one where you need a bit of support underneath the wee tube, like a little hammock. And we have this lovely operation where we put a little polythene sling, polypropylene sling underneath the wee tube under surgical conditions. 1 or 2 day operation, you stay in hospital, and 90% cure. And the other side of the coin is you get a lot of women and men who have overactive bladders. Now, their problem isn't going to be fixed with an operation. Their problem actually needs medication and change in lifestyle, drinking less, looking out for triggers, because their problem is that their bladder just doesn't like relaxing. Right. So it's just constantly squeezing, and it's an overactive or unstable bladder.
Should you start with those things before you hit the surgery point? Should you start with, you know, stopping drinking at, I don't know, 5 o'clock in the evening or something? Or
yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth looking at lifestyle things, and it's always worth going to see a pelvic floor physio, because a pelvic floor physio can teach a woman how to squeeze those muscles, get them strong. A bit like bodybuilding, only for the pelvic floor muscles.
OK, so
we talked about that.
Yeah, we did. We were sat here doing it ourselves.
These are the Kegel exercises.
Kegel exercises. Yeah. And then there's other things, like, I mean, I've occasionally had patients who, the nutters you see driving around the city drinking water as they're driving, because they're so busy in their lives, they actually can't sort of drink water like normal people.
That's me.
That's me too. Yeah.
Well, you two are nutters then.
Yes.
So basically, there are people. I've got patients who drink 4 litres of 5 litres of water a day.
Gosh.
We were not made to drink 4 or 5 litres. There's no magic number.
What should... Well,
2 to 2.5, roughly.
Right. Yeah, but that's even a struggle. That's 8-9 glasses.
Yeah, well, that includes everything. Yogurt,
okay.
you know, tea, coffee, the works.
Righto.
But, you know, there's this thing put out there by the water industry that bottled water industry, that we should all be driving around drinking water.
When you do start drinking a heap of water, you're weeing all the time, but you actually end up training your bladder, don't you? And you don't wee as much.
That's true, but if you've got a weakness there, that will only make it a lot worse. So, I mean, I've got 1 or 2 patients who've been cured simply by not drinking 10 gallons a day.
Okay.
I've got other patients who don't drink anywhere near enough, because even when they drink what you and I would regard as half normal amounts, they're leaking the whole time.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Must be awful.
Is it true, I'm going off out, you know, left field a bit here, but I was told this as a kid, that mice and rats wee all the time, everywhere they go?
I haven't got a clue.
Why would you ask a new vet?
Well, I just heard it.
I've got a mate who's a vet, I can ask him.
Perfect, see, a vet. Now, that would be the perfect person to ask that
Although
to.
I don't know many rats, so taken in to see him.
I do, he's sat right here.
What's this biofeedback and electrical stimulation?
Right. That's, again, a physio technique. So you've talked about Kegel exercises, but there are some people, men and women, find it very, very difficult to know if the squeeze that they're doing is in the right place. So there's various contraptions that can tell us it's in the right place, and that's what biofeedback is. You actually do the squeeze and a machine tells you it's in the right place.
Oh, okay. Now, I know that you deal mostly with women in this, but it can obviously happen to men as well.
Yes, it can indeed, and lots of prostate problems, and there are new types of operations for men as well, but men need to go and see a urologist who's different to a...
Right.
Whereas women almost always end up seeing a urogynecologist who's,
I guess the other thing with it is it can be embarrassing for people, and even to make that first step of going to see someone.
It's a huge problem. It's a huge... No one wants to talk about it, and the trouble is, you know, in our society we think it's a problem for nanas only.
Yeah.
And, you know, people talk about nana nappies and all this sort of stuff. But the problem is actually widespread. It starts very early on. I've got patients in their late 20s and early 30s with the same problem. There's a pretty good New Zealand resource. There's the New Zealand Continence Foundation, which is continence.org.nz, which is it's not a private company or anything.
Right.
It's there to actually support men and women with the problem. There's a free phone number they've got as well,
Sounds good.
which I don't know what it is, but continence.org.nz. Worth looking at.
Brilliant.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll find out about the rats.
Actually, if anyone's out there, let me know. If you're a vet, could you email in or Facebook us, please? I'd heard this thing that rats and mice just keep peeing everywhere. They don't actually have a bladder.
No, because I used to own a rat, but we had him for 3 years. His name was Ricky, and he definitely didn't wee all over the house because he didn't have a cage. He ran free.
I'm weird.
And slept with the cat.
All right. Anyway, if you need some advice or support about incontinence, then please visit our website where we've got all that info that Dr. Anil was just mentioning.
Cool.